Welcome back to Tiki Bar Crimes. Grab yourself a drink, and today we're going to talk about the dark side of Thailand, specifically the island to the south called Koh Tao. Now, the south is beautiful, it's idyllic, it's got lovely beaches, but Koh Tao has been riddled in conspiracy theories and suspicions around a lot of controversial deaths that have happened to tourists, specifically a European tourists, and more so British tourists as well. Now, it all began in 2014 when David Miller, aged 24, and Hannah Witheridge, 23, were found just 30 metres away from their hotel. They had been brutally murdered, were half naked. Hannah Witheridge had been raped. David had been left in shallow waters to drown, and they had both sustained really deep wounds, specifically to the head and face. Now, these were thought to be caused by a garden hoe left near the scene, which was covered in blood. There was DNA at the crime scene, including cigarette butts on the actual victims' bodies and on a condom. David Miller and Hannah Witheridge did not know each other before visiting Thailand. They met at their hotel. Now, investigations began and the police immediately denied that any native Thai person could have committed this crime. They looked at either another British tourist or a migrant worker, specifically a Burmese migrant worker. Now, Thailand has a booming tourist industry, and to keep up with the work, they have a lot of Burmese migrants. It is said that police often look down on these migrants. They use them as scapegoats for crimes. They don't treat them very well either. And this is the suspicion that's happened within this case. There was CCTV near the crime scene, and two Burmese migrants were picked up on this. Zorlin and Wai Pao, I think that's how you pronounce their names. And these two were arrested, and when in custody, they later confessed to the murders of David Miller and Hannah Witheridge. Now, they would withdraw these confessions and say that they only did them under duress. They were tortured and forced to confess to these crimes. Their DNA, however, did match those of the cigarette butt on the victims themselves and the condom that was found. Their confession went something along the lines of they stumbled upon Hannah and David, who were kissing on the beach. They became aroused and later beat both of them to death. It was a sexual assault as well, as Hannah Witheridge was raped. Now, they did withdraw this confession, and citing that it was made under duress. Thai police have been known to use unnecessary force against migrant workers. They often, as I say, look down on them, use them as scapegoats. The theory goes that particularly within the south of Thailand, it is often controlled by Thai mafia families, and if perhaps one of these family members were responsible for this crime, the police would be looking for a scapegoat in order to cover that up. Despite withdrawing their confessions, these two men were sentenced to trial, and they were found guilty of the murder of David Miller and the murder and rape of Hannah Witheridge. They were sentenced to the death penalty, which they later appealed, and in 2019 the Supreme Court upheld their conviction. However, later their mothers appealed to the king. This was their last option, to give clemency and withdraw the death penalty so that they would only serve life imprisonment. The king actually did grant this, and this was even supported by the parents of David and Hannah. Before I go into the other theories surrounding this case, I would like to say that the parents insist that they think the right people were caught. They said the evidence was overwhelming against them, including the DNA. They were given adequate representation. The police did not, it wasn't a shambles, the case, as the media made out. So the parents of the victims truly believe that Zorlin and Wai Pao were responsible for their children's deaths. So the other theories surrounding the deaths of Hannah and David are that the south of Thailand is controlled by Thai mafia. Now, this isn't what we think of like gun-wielding gangsters. These are ancient sort of Thai families who have a lot of control, a lot of wealth over a lot of things, including the police. So they run resorts, they run taxi firms, which they charge an extortionate amount of money to tourists for. They run things like jet skis and dive schools, and they'll make tourists pay for fictional sort of damages. They hold a lot of influence, and this is the theory that one of those members of those family were responsible, and these other men were used as a scapegoat to take the fall. The general advice when visiting Thailand, specifically the south, is never to leave your passport as security. You can't really actually trust the police, although you should always report the crime, even if it's just for insurance purposes. Even the Foreign Office advises that there are numerous reports of sexual attacks on women in Thailand. There has been also several reports of drinks being spiked, men and women, so the advice is not to take drinks from strangers. Even my personal experience of Koh Samui and Koh Phangan, I met two people who were interrogated by the police. They hadn't really done anything wrong, they were drunk, but they just had a very uneasy feeling. So when you go there, you do need to kind of have your wits about you, which is a shame, because when I went to Bangkok, we met some lovely people. It is a Buddhist country, they are very gentle and they are very kind, but there does seem to be this sort of dark underflowing current, particularly around the south. So the idea is that Hannah Witheridge got into an argument with one of these prominent family members in a bar, and that was the motive for their subsequent murders. Now, the police obviously would not say anything about this, they would cover it up. Anyone living there would not say anything, they would be too afraid of the consequences of this. To add to this, there have been additional tourist deaths, a number of them in suspicious circumstances where it looks like the police have kind of covered it up. In 2012, we have a young man called Ben Harrington who was in a motorbike accident. The family got really suspicious because the Thai police wanted to cremate him the next day, so there was no autopsy, nothing. We also have a young girl, Christina Ansley, who was found dead, and the police blame this on a mixture of her having alcohol and taking antibiotics for a chest infection. Again, due to the lack of reports and the lack of digging, the families were very suspicious. We also have the 29-year-old Dimitri Paus, who I found this very odd. He was found hung in his room, and the police say this was a suicide by hanging. However, his hands were tied behind his back. So how could he have hung himself? And the family repeatedly expressed that concern. There was no toxicology report done either, so it really hinted at a cover-up. We have Nick Pearson, who was found floating in the sea. Now the police say he fell from a cliff. However, the family really was suspicious of this. Again, there was a lack of reports or any real investigations done, which really made them concerned about what had truly happened to their son. Also in 2016, we have Luke Miller, who was found dead floating in a pool. Family have really conflicting reports on the events leading up to his death, which made them very suspicious. We have a Russian lady who left her hotel with her diving gear never to be seen again. No body, no trace of her. Again, the Thai police just reported her dead through an accident or something, but her families are really suspicious. We also have a German man aged 47 who was found dead just outside his home. The Thai police said it was caused by a heart attack, but again, no autopsy, no toxicology report. And finally in 2017 we have Elise Delamanche. Now this is really interesting. She was found half eaten by lizards in the jungle of Koh Tao. The police say it was a suicide by hanging again, but she was found wrapped in t-shirts with a fuel tank next to her. And her family believe she was running and escaping from a Buddhist cult. In the days leading up to her death, she would disguise her identity when checking into hotels. She wouldn't write her passport number. She used a different surname. She also booked a flight to Bangkok and a transfer out of Koh Tao. Her baggage actually arrived and she didn't. So why would someone do that if they were planning to take their own life? Again, no autopsy was ever done, no real investigations were ever done, and the family truly believe, where she was part of this cult and this sort of guru that she escaped from, that she was truly trying to get away. Now, the police obviously would cover all of these deaths up, especially as they happen to tourists, as that is their main booming industry. The frequency and number of these deaths, though, is incredibly concerning, and the fact that they all seem to happen to British tourists, there seems to be no investigation, no autopsies, no toxicology reports. It just seems to be swept under the rug. So that's the dark side of Koh Tao. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you have a case you want me to cover next time, please let me know, and I'll see you next time.